Nerpa? Alright, today I want to talk about a short RPG roguelike hybrid horror game from the developer Otes called No Delivery. This is not his most recent game, but it's the one that I saw and was like, oh wow, I want to play this, I like the aesthetic. So today, once again, the Nerpa way, I will be talking about the bad, the okay, and then the good. First, let's of course start in with a little background. No Delivery is a short, horror-themed RPG roguelike hybrid set in kind of a pizza arcade I'm not going to say it's a la FNAF, because FNAF is just a pizzeria, as I recall. I mean, they've got a party room, but it's really just like a Chuck E. Cheese, like a pizzeria arcade type building. I like the grungy designs, I love the art, and let's talk about it. First, let's get into the bad. The criticisms I have with No Delivery mainly revolve around the combat system that they've implemented. There aren't a whole ton of skills that can freshen things up. The bosses and the regular fights kind of feel the same. They don't end up being that big of a story beat or that big of a combat encounter. In fact, one of the criticisms that I have generally is that a lot of boss fights and a lot of specific kind of events that lead to endings aren't really warned about in the world or in the area in some way or another. I just walked into one of the fights that led to an ending at one point, just expecting it to be, oh, well, this is going to be another area. I'll walk in, explore a little bit, and then I'll go back, because I had an item that I wanted to use to open up some other pathways and stuff like that. And I got an ending and I was like, what? What is this? Not that it's that big of a deal, because the game kind of just sets you back with all your stuff just before the ending took place, right? So you can kind of work your way to get all the endings quite easily. But I think that it takes away from the gravity of the encounter when there isn't really any build up to it being a boss encounter. And partially, the small amount of variation to the combat contributes to this issue, because there's no new air blowing in when you're fighting a boss. Every boss is basically something that you've fought before, but a little bit more difficult a lot of times. And this is a criticism with like difficulty sliders as well. I know some people have, is like it'll have more health or it'll have more actions by virtue of being like a bigger encounter, like there's more dudes, right? It does end up getting really trivialized by the disposable camera exploit. It's not like a bug in the game or anything. It's just the disposable camera, as it is right now, is so incredibly powerful that there is not a single enemy that cannot be beaten by just having enough disposable cameras. You don't have to buy disposable cameras, but I think that strategies that end up being this strong kind of take away from the game when there's already kind of so little depth to the combat. Alright, criticisms over. Let's move on. Now that we've talked about the bad, I want to talk about what's just okay. So, I think in this game, there isn't that much in terms of background music, but I do like it. Like, a lot of the places are only playing kind of ambient noises, and I think that in the boss fights and in the fights, I do like that main track that they have, those pieces of music. However, I will say that by default it's a little loud, but that's a setting that you can change, so it's not a real criticism. I also think that, yeah, it's all it's all very solid. I just think that it could have helped differentiate maybe some of the enemy types if there was time to, or some of the roguelike areas if there was time to really make some good tracks for the enemies that are contained within. Like, the normal enemies in an area get their own music, and I don't mean each, but I mean like you have a normal enemy music and a boss music that's different depending on the wrong turn, I think is what the roguelike sections are called. I think that a bigger cast of monsters would be nice if they played differently. I think that additionally, for the daytime portions, this would be essentially changing some of the base systems. But if you had the daytime sections give you insight to the nighttime enemies, then you could make the resistances and strengths and weaknesses of the enemy more varied, because the player could get the information before going in, so it wouldn't feel like they got robbed of like a character that they were doing pretty well on. Not that losing a character is really that big of a deal, but I think that would be an interesting idea. My final kind of okay portion is the roguelike sections. I do like roguelikes, and I think that they do have a place within RPG games in general, like kind of nesting them together. In No Delivery, I think that the roguelike sections don't intertwine that well with the rest of the game. This is also partially due to the combat kind of being trivialized at points, is because you only really do the roguelike sections once to get the item that you need, and then there's no reason to come back to them. Although the sections are still fun, and I think there's a lot of promise, if you are buying the game enticed by the roguelike portion, I think you'll be a little bit disappointed in comparison to the roguelikes that are on the market otherwise, where their systems are a bit more refined and there's a little bit more depth, item combinations that you find, that kind of thing. I have to reiterate that everything that I'm saying here is not a criticism, but rather a point that I believe the developer could improve a little bit, but does not detract from the game in its current state. So now that we've talked about what's okay, I want to talk about what's good in this game. And let me tell you, I really do think this game is quite good. In No Delivery, the exploration is really fun. I like when I get an item and I feel like, oh, this item's a little puzzle. Oh, maybe I could try it here. Maybe I could try it here, that kind of thing. And a lot of the items are like quite straightforward in what they do. That's not a bad thing, I think, because when you finish a section and you're like, oh, wow, I got this item, and you have that moment of like, wow, I know just what to do with this, it's more fun than like just having like, oh, just a key or something. Like the sledgehammer, once you get it, you're like, oh, dude, I saw a ton of places I could use this. This is going to open up the map more. And the game is very short, so it's not like it's opening up like huge sections or anything like that. But I think that for the length of the game, the depth of use of those items for exploration is really good. Like, I really enjoy it. The story, I think as well, is good in that it's not overt at any point. Even at the end, it's not necessarily like, oh, you know, this is what happened. To some people, that could be a plus or a minus. But for me, it's a plus, because in these kinds of horror-adjacent RPGs or like horror-themed RPGs, it's a big plus for me to leave it mysterious. I think if the same thing was done in like a high fantasy RPG, I would have an issue with the execution, because I wouldn't really learn anything about the world or how it works by the end of it. However, this is also a very short game, so I think it works fine. Like, leave it ambiguous, let the player draw a lot of their own conclusions about like what stuff is. It's more fun in general to draw your own conclusions from what's going on. That kind of leads into my next big like about this game, which is I do think that the ambience, the art looks great, the background noise is really well done, actually, especially in the arcade. When you walk into the arcade the first time, you're actually like, hey, wow, it's got a little bit of like a lonely feeling to it, because it's like it's an empty arcade. The art is nice to look at. I know this isn't true for everyone, but at least for me, I think if a game looks really bad, I struggle to play it. And when I say looks bad, I don't mean chunky or something, but rather if it doesn't have some sort of style to it, then I won't play the game. I really do like that kind of old, like, pizza arcade theme that's going on. My final point in the good is enemy coherency. Enemy coherency is important to me when it comes to the design of locations in the game. What I mean by that is, the enemies are related to the location that they're actually in some way or another, or if an enemy is out of place, it adds to the story, the lore of the game, because you'll ask the question, why is this enemy here? Which is a question you can only ask if the other enemies are actually coherent with the location. It's an often overlooked facet of design, but I think it's really important, and when I was playing the game, I always enjoyed going to a new location because I was excited to see what kind of enemies could be there. Now that we're finished going over the good, let's wrap it up. After going through the bad, the okay, and then the good, I want to tell you whether I think you should buy the game or not. By the time this video goes up, until I believe it's the 4th of May, it just so happens that no delivery is on sale for $1.50, at least in the US. So at that point, and honestly at its full price of $5, I would say the game is 100% worth playing and giving a try. If you're someone who's into RPGs, you're into roguelikes, you like that aesthetic, I would pick it up. The only reason that I wouldn't pick it up is if you're really buying it only for the roguelike portion. I don't think that there is enough meat there to keep you interested if you're used to playing other types of roguelikes. But I think the rest of the game supports it well enough that it's worth giving a shot. And I mean, for $1.50, come on. I'm going to rank this one above Mega Man Battle Network 1. Alright, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Next week, we'll talk about another game. So, stay round.